Can you believe it's almost the middle of the year? 2020 is almost halfway over. How are you doing on your New Year's resolutions? Do you even remember what you resolved to do at the beginning of the year? And now with this whole quarantine and COVID-19 crisis, we've all been thrown for a loop. So today on Teen Talk with Nika, we're going to talk about ways that we can crush the rest of the year and maximize all of our opportunities by getting rid of those fears that we've been holding on to, getting rid of the things that have been holding us back. So if you want to learn some ways that you can start packing away those fears and seizing the day, carpe diem, stay tuned for more information today on Teen Talk with Nika. For those of you that don't know, I have a Facebook group called Strategies for Social Success. In my group, we discuss many different topics of ways to help women optimize their social networks, crush their fears, and get out and start living the life that they want and meeting the type of people that can inspire them and push them to be their best selves. So being that we're almost at the middle of the year and a lot of us have been in this stagnant situation because of COVID-19, I decided it'd be a great opportunity for a little challenge. Who doesn't love a little bit of motivation and a little bit of a challenge? So right now in my group, we're doing a 7-day mid-year reset challenge. And the goal of this challenge is to get people to really think about where they are emotionally and to set some concrete goals for the rest of the year, things that they're going to commit themselves to. Two major obstacles that prevent people from achieving their goals are dealing with their fears and letting their fears overtake them and not truly understanding their why. Why do they want to achieve the goals that they want to achieve? And I feel that those two things go hand in hand. So this week in my group, the first challenge that we're working on is trying to face our fears direct on. Now, I'm not saying that, for example, if someone is scared of spiders, that they're going to go get a spider and put in their face. But I want us to face it in a written sense. A lot of the times we start building up things in our minds and we make it to be bigger than it really is. If you're not familiar, fear is really false evidence appearing real. There's nothing to support it. So if we can really rationalize our fears, then that's a great way to try and conquer them. I'm going to take you guys on a little bit of a biology lesson, so bear with me. But I want to kind of explain to you why we have to deal with our fears head on. In the back of our brains, we have a little spot back here called the amygdala, and that's our primitive brain. And it's responsible for our fight or flight response. So all of our fears, all of our emotions, and sometimes the irrational emotions come from our primitive brain, the amygdala. Versus the front of our brain here. This is our logic brain. This is where our prefrontal cortex lies. So if any of you have teenagers in your home, you might wonder why they do crazy things even though they appear to be almost young adults. Well, it's because their prefrontal cortex or their logical brain isn't fully developed. So logic goes all the way out the window with teenagers until it's fully developed. So if we can look at our fears head on by writing them down, the simple act of writing down the fears, things that we've been telling ourselves over and over again that are preventing us from going out there and maximizing our life, and we can then pick it apart using our logical brain, a lot of times we'll find that our fears have no support. And that's the first step in being able to overcome them. So the challenge that I've posed to the women in my group this week is to write down a list of their fears, 5 to 10 of their fears that have been preventing them from maximizing their life emotionally, financially, or socially. Once you write down those fears and you can actually look at it and have it look back at you and spend some time really thinking about your fears and what they mean to you, it becomes a lot easier to process it with your logical brain. The challenge now is to sit there and for each one of those fears that you have listed, to find facts that support those fears. To give you guys a little bit of a definition, a fact has to be something that is 100% true, 100% of the time, for 100% of the people. So unless something qualifies with those 3 items, 100% true, 100% of the time, for 100% of the people, it can't be considered a fact. And if you take that tactic and try and apply it to rationalizing your fears, more times than not, you'll recognize that a lot of your fears are completely irrational, which they should be, right? They're coming from our amygdala. So that's the challenge that I posed to the women in my group this week. And I've been getting wonderful responses from ladies that have been holding on to these fears for so long. And when they finally look at them, even the act of just writing them down and rereading them, they start to recognize how irrational many of our fears are. Fear and logic aren't connected. So when we write it down, we're making this connection and we're starting to dissect the fears so that we can get rid of them. And so the other part of this challenge, this 7-day challenge, is to understand our why. For any person to succeed in any aspect of their life, they have to make certain that their why is much stronger than their fear. If your fear is stronger than your why, you're always going to be subject to your fear and you're not going to achieve the things that you set out to do. But many times we set out on a goal and we have this kind of general idea of what we're trying to accomplish, but we don't have a concrete definition of what we're trying to do. And until we are able to make something concrete, make that goal something solidified and concrete, it's very hard to recognize why our fears would be irrational. The other thing that I urged my group members to think about when they started reflecting on their fears is to ask themselves the question, well, what's the worst that could happen? Because even taking it a step beyond trying to rationalize and find the facts that can or cannot support what our fears are, let's say you do happen to find a fact that is, again, 100% true, 100% of the time for 100% of the people. If this fact definitely does apply to your fear, the next step we have to take beyond that is, okay, well, if this fact is true, what would be the worst outcome? I think a lot of the times we get too tied to the outcomes because, again, we're building up everything in our minds to be much more than they really ever would be in real life. But if we can finally take a look at it and say, okay, what would be the worst outcome? Am I going to die? Well, if I'm not going to die, think of what I can get from actually going towards that fear. Think of the rewards that I can get from pushing through that fear. Many times we women, we're our harshest critics. We're not tall enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not smart enough. All of these things that we feel are holding us back or that we have to correct before we can really step out and start going after our goals. And we have to remember that tomorrow's a bonus, not a right. So we have to try and optimize and maximize every day that we're given. If we keep putting things off until tomorrow, we might not have the opportunity to take care of the things that we want or to get to where we want to get to. So I offered the ladies in my group this piece of advice, and I'm going to offer it to you too. Look at every fear that can be substantiated by fact as, what's the worst that can happen? Let's say I have 20 pounds that I want to lose. I want to go out there and start socializing. I want to go out there and start meeting great people and networking and trying to optimize the people that I'm meeting with and making an amazing social circle and giving of myself and giving back into a community that's going to push me to be the best that I can be. And if I'm looking at it like, well, I'm not the weight I want to be yet, what's the worst that can happen? Why would we leave ourselves outside of what we could be just for something as superficial as weight? So let's say you're a size 16 and you're trying to get down to a size 10. You go out there as a size 16. What's really the worst that can happen? People aren't going to look at you and laugh at you and say, oh my God, you're a size 16. We can't talk to you. That would never happen. And honestly, if it were to happen, that's definitely not the type of people that you want to be around. But sometimes we have all of these superficial things that keep us back. Oh, well, I have to wait until I get my degree, or I have to wait until I get this certification, or I have to wait until I reach this certain age. But why? Try it. What's the worst that can happen if you do something when you're not quite ready? Oftentimes, it's best to do things when we're not quite ready because then we get to learn in the process. Our minds are open. We recognize that we don't have the experience. And it makes us stronger people when we can learn from the experience that we're in. The best way to overcome these limits and succumbing to these fears is to understand your fundamental why. Why are you trying to get where you're trying to get? Why did you set these goals? So at the beginning of the year, many of us might say, okay, I have X goal. So for example, I have a goal that is to get my credit score over a certain number. Well, yes, that's a great general goal. It's specific, but why? Let's break it down a little bit more. I want my credit score above a 750. Why? Well, because I know that the better my credit score is, the more access I will have to better interest rates, the better opportunities I'll have with different loans for my business, etc. Okay, well, why again? And every time you come down to the next level, you ask yourself why and break it down further and further. It's almost like a funnel. We're starting with our broader reason, me wanting to get my credit score above a 750. And I break it down that way. Okay, next, the next level beyond that is that I am trying to get the best interest rates that I can get. Well, why? Well, because I know eventually I'm going to want a business loan because I want to expand my business. Well, why? Well, because I love being an entrepreneur. I love being self-employed, and I want to be able to bring more people into my company. Why again? Well, because I like having that financial security and I like being in charge of my own income and not having someone else telling me what I can and can't do. Well, why? Well, ultimately, maybe it comes down to just wanting that security and control of my life. So even though I started with the broader topic of wanting to get my credit score above a 750, really the fundamental core reason, my core why, is because I want to have that security. I want to have that level of control over what I can and can't do financially in my life. So I hope that makes sense to you. When we have our bigger whys, it really helps to go below the surface level and really find out emotionally what that why is. Because now, once we know what the true emotional basis of our goals are, then that's going to be stronger than any fear we can try and match up next to it. Even if we do feel something that's going to limit us or that's going to prevent us from really taking that leap, when we revert back to our why, our fundamental core why, that's always going to guide us forward. We're going to take on that fear. We're going to crush through it, and we're going to maximize everything in our lives. I hope you got some information from this video. And if you're interested in joining the challenge, you definitely have to come over to my Facebook group, Strategies for Social Success. We are doing amazing inner work in this group in order to help ladies set their minds right and get their emotions under control so that they can be the best selves that they can present in order to give the gifts that they offer in any type of social environment. If this content has been helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and come on over to Facebook and join us in my Facebook group, Strategies for Social Success. So until next time, I'm Nika Mora, and this is Tea Talk with Nika, and you know what to do. Stay beautiful.